Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Welcome to My Dead Brothers podcast. This show is about that journey, seizing the day, the people, the moments, and the circumstances around us. Tyler Bolken talks about grit, grace, gratitude, and the gospel inside us for others. The 4 G's. Tyler is a man of faith, a family man with 3 kiddos, a Marine Corps veteran, and an amazing storyteller. It's time to seize the day. This is My Dead Brothers podcast, and this is Tyler Bolken.
All right, you guys, welcome to episode 2 of My Dead Brothers podcast. This has been an episode that I'm extremely excited about. We have got a man by the name of Jared Norton, and he so happened to be a close friend of Cody's, and he's obviously got some great stories to share in that realm, but Jared's also got an awesome story of his own. You know, Jared is a veteran of the Iraq War. He deployed in 2012 for a year as a cavalry scout. I won't hold that against him as a Marine, but, you know, we'll share some stories talking about that. Jared works in the construction field as a civil engineer, and that has taken him across the country. He spent time in Kalispell, Montana, North Dakota, and now he is back home in Boise, Idaho. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that, and, you know, we will see where the rest of the conversation takes us, guys. And like I said on the previous episode, we will always start with a question that I'll ask us to ponder throughout our conversation here, and Jared and I will take a stab at answering it at the end. And the question today is, how do we stay calm under chaos, right? It's pretty difficult when, you know, everything's coming at us from every direction and we have to stay composed, or, you know, we still have to get through it, right? So that's the question I want us to kind of sit on today. And without further ado, let me kind of already laid it out, but let me introduce Jared. I've got him on a Zoom call today from Boise, and I'm here in Phoenix. It's still 100 plus degrees out here in the fall. What's the weather like in Boise right now, Jared?
A little warmer than usual. It's maybe 80 degrees, but it's sunny and pretty nice.
Okay, that's not too bad. Right, and I think that one of the things I miss most about Boise is just the seasons, right? Like, I'm sure that right now the leaves are changing colors and you're starting to get more brisk mornings. We're getting cooler mornings here in Phoenix, but we don't really get that. I think the equivalent would be in summer, the leaves change colors, but it's usually because stuff's dying. So it's not exactly the same. But yeah, so Jared and I have kind of been talking, you know, leading up to this podcast, and, you know, I laid out the format with him as far as, you know, what direction we're going to take the conversation through grit, gratitude, grace, gratitude, and gospel. Just about butchered it there. So yeah, let's just roll right into it, you know. And I think that Jared, one thing that I'd like to ask you, you know, when you think about grit, you know, what's one of those experiences that you've had that you feel has really shaped you, whether it was, you know, tribulations or trials or, you know, difficulty, or maybe it was something that you liked to do. You know, I think a person I think about with grit is like David Goggins. He brings it all on himself. He likes it. But yeah, what's that kind of mean to you, and what's an experience that you feel has epitomized that?
That's a tough one, man. I think grit, you almost kind of have to have that every day. You know, you're faced with challenges every day. Some days they're small and some days they're big. You just kind of got to keep charging forward and get through whatever, you know, comes up. You never know what's going to happen.
Right.
Kind of deal with it as it comes. So
as a cavalry scout in Iraq, you know, we briefly talked about that. You spent a year overseas, another country, as a young man. I'm guessing you were in your early 20s. What was that like? You know, kind of take me through that, you know, from the 16-hour flight to a barren desert and being put to work for a year. What was that like?
Yeah, man, it was kind of different. At that time, Iraq was kind of winding down, so I mean that wasn't the hard part of it. It was just the being gone and the change in mindset, and in a sense, almost kind of the letdown. Like we talked before, I'm glad now that wasn't too crazy, but at the time, I almost kind of wanted it to be, and I was a little bummed out that what wasn't going to be what I envisioned, but actually wound up being more difficult than what I envisioned, just because of that.
Right, like kind of mentally enduring, I would imagine, right? Like it's just as far as
Yeah, totally a mental game. Just all that training to just kind of be let down in the end was probably the biggest
right.
hurdle for me to jump over in that.
So go into that training a little bit. So you were in the Guard, and a lot of folks may not know that, as a National Guard service member, you actually, more often than not have opportunities to be activated, and in your case, be deployed for a year. What was that workup like? Here you are 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, then all of a sudden you're getting ready to deploy.
Yeah, actually, it kind of happened towards the end of my deal, and with my contract. Sorry, man, I got a dog out.
Oh, no worries. He's got to let his dog out. You're fine, man. Hey, life happens.
But yeah, it was actually kind of towards the end of my contract, and I almost, it was always kind of oh, we might go kind of a deal. But after several years, it just kind of went to the back of my mind, and then kind of heard through the grapevine that it actually might be coming for real. I don't know if I really believed it or not, but I was actually up turkey hunting and got the call. And when I got service again is when I found out that it was time to leave and come back and start the train up deal. So yeah, being in the Guard obviously very different. I think there's a lot more of a train up. I'm not sure on that, but I would imagine there is. And we kind of started here in Idaho, and they have a big training area here just south of Boise. So we spent a couple months out there doing stuff, and then went to Mississippi, and honestly can't remember how long we spent there. I want to say it was 2 or 3 months. And from there, we just all got on the plane and headed out. I think I went up through Maine, and then went to Europe, and then went into Kuwait for a couple of weeks, and that was just a whole bunch of logistical stuff, getting everybody kind of organized and getting all the gear organized and whatever. I had a little bit to do there, but mostly just went to the gym and ate food and just kind of waited. Yeah, and then we flew into Baghdad and got dropped off and spent 12 months there. So
right, yeah, it's not always like the commercials, right? I think that's something that we learn early on, and I think that in itself builds a lot of character, just in the way that we are experiencing something that we didn't really have a say in, I would say, and that always has a way of just instilling some unique qualities in you.
Yeah, the commercials lied.
Right. Yeah, man. Just in hearing you talk about that experience and getting to know you a little bit better, I can just tell, man, I don't know if you've been told this, but you've got a humble aura about you. I think that you really have a way of underestimating things that you've done and maybe things that you've accomplished, and it's a great quality, And with that, so here you are coming back from serving your country, spending time overseas. May have not been like the commercial, but you know what? You're still part of that 1% that raised their hand and did it. And with that, what was the mindset coming back?
Not good, actually. I came back just at the very end of my contract. I think I had like 2 months left, and everybody's talking about re-enlisting or extending or whatever, and I just had no interest. The whole thing kind of just left a bad taste in my mouth, and I was pretty disgruntled, I guess you might say. Actually, we were demobbing in Fort Lewis, and they wanted to bring everybody home on one plane, and have a big parade and whatever. And I had already enrolled in college, because this kind of happened in the last third or quarter of my education, and I actually took a couple classes online while I was over there. And then coming back, I knew I was going to be a little late, but I kind of signed up anyways and reached out to my professors and kind of told them my situation. And they were all real helpful on it, actually. I did what work I could, send it in via email. But I was ready to be done and get back. So not my finest moment, but actually a few days, and they just kept dragging out the date for when we were going to actually go home. And I was done with everything in Fort Lewis. I'd been cleared medically and whatever, and I had my my discharge papers from active duty. And I actually left in the middle of the night and got a taxi and went to the airport and bought my own plane ticket home. And yeah, I got in a little bit of trouble for that, but
Oh wow.
I was pretty done at that point. And yeah, if that tells you anything about my mindset at the end of that, that's
Right.
where I was at.
Let's chat about that for a second, because I think that so many people, when they think about the military, they immediately have this thought of, man, how could you do that? You're getting yelled at by drill instructors or drill sergeants, and you're being told what to do every day. And yeah, there's parts of that suck, but then hearing your story, like you're telling me, because, we have that shared understanding, like, yeah, man, I went and bought my own plane ticket and I just left. Like, an everyday civilian, like, they're going to think to themselves, like, yeah, of course, you make your decisions. But in the military, you don't have that freedom. It's kind of, yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things you appreciate when you get out. You're like, oh, hey, I don't have to get my hair cut this week, or I'm going to let, you got a nice beard going on. I think that's what every service member does, that, they get that beard 6 months out.
I try to hide my pictures from about 6 months after I got back, because I grew my hair out much longer than I usually do.
Right.
I look kind of like a dork, but I could, so I did it.
I always envy my fellow service members that grow their beards. I have baby face. I don't know. I guess I get that.
You and Cody had the same facial hair?
Yeah, man. We would always send each other mustache pictures, and they weren't pretty. I promise you that. But yeah, man. So you come back, and let's just kind of finish up on this, like in talking about the grit side of it, man. What was your biggest takeaway from that period of your life, from high school to, kind of experiencing some, probably indecisiveness with what you wanted to do exactly, and then going into the military and coming out the other side with, a whole breadth of experience, I'm sure. What would you say your biggest takeaway was from that part of your life?
Oh man, it depends on what part of it we're talking about. I mean, I enlisted actually before I actually got out of high school. So obviously in those years you change a lot as a person anyways, but that kind of took it to a different level and amplified it. When I first went in, I was young and proud and had kind of maybe an attitude or whatever. And when I got out, I was, almost the complete opposite. I had a very, very different attitude, a lot more compassion for people. And, I almost did a 180 over that time frame. And I think it made a better person out of me for sure.
What do you feel drew out that compassion? Was it just the bullshit? Like you kind of had perspective, or what drew that out? Do you feel like?
I think going in, it almost kind of fit my attitude, just kind of hard-headed, and I didn't really mind basic training or whatever, in a sense, and kind of just that kind of asshole approach in how you treat people, and you're going to do this whether you want to or not, and tough shit, get it done. And I think over the course of my deployment, I just talked about it being kind of mentally draining and very different than what anybody expected. I saw the people under me just kind of struggling as well, and just over the course of that year, I just learned to kind of put myself in their shoes, and understanding that in the moment, the military, this isn't their life.
Right.
It is, but at the same time, it's just a small part of their life, and they had family back home, and some of them were married, and they were having troubles with that, and kids, and the whole mess. And I just realized they were struggling in different ways, and just kind of being an asshole and yelling at people all the time. Really, actually, it might work in the short term, but it doesn't work in the long term to treat people that way.
Yeah, completely agree, man. And I think that in the military and in life, for that matter, we learn as much from the bad leaders as we do the good leaders, right? And I think a lot of the things that you were saying, tie right into that. And with that, what would you say? And we can kind of move this forward or backward. Where do you feel you've had a instance in your life where somebody gave you that compassion, gave you that grace, to maybe you were, being a knucklehead. I think of occasions where a cop pulls us over and they give us a warning, right? That's kind of one of the exaggerated cases. But is there any to you that stand out in particular where you're like, damn, like that person didn't need to do that for me, but they did? Or maybe you've provided that for somebody?
Yeah, maybe. Man, just off the top of my head, first thing that comes to mind is a kind of a teacher in high school. Actually, I was kind of a shithead kid in middle school, and coming into high school, I'd gotten a lot of trouble, and I always got good grades or whatever, but I was just kind of a pain in the ass in the classroom.
That's why you and Cody were friends then, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah.
And looking back, I treated a lot of teachers in ways that I regret now, even as an adult, even acknowledging that I was young and immature then, but I still to this day feel bad about some of them. But I was just a kid always in the back of the class with long hair, and a lot of people wouldn't believe it, but I used to be kind of a little punk rock or BMX kid, and I had the wallet chain, and I used to have long pink hair. I really wanted red hair, but apparently my hair just doesn't dye red, so every time it just came out hot pink. And luckily I was a big kid, or I probably would have got my ass kicked a lot.
Man, I can't visualize that. I mean, that's you got to send me a picture, man.
Pictures, but I keep them hidden. So my mom didn't take very many pictures of me over those years.
Oh man, that's pretty good. And yeah, teachers, that's a great example. Here they are, doing one of the ultimate services a person can do. They're teaching the next generation, right? And usually we were such assholes, or just had no actual appreciation for that, man. Yeah, I think that's a great example.
Well, while I was in, that period of my life, I guess to complete that thought, it was this one teacher. I think he was teaching English. Gosh, I can't even remember. But when I started his class, I was just just the same kind of prick little kid, and sleeping in class all the time and whatever. And he just I guess he approached me differently, and kind of acknowledged my good qualities, and it was refreshing, and I kind of changed my outlook in high school from that point going forward. And
right.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's funny how experiencing life, and kind of getting hit in the face by it has a way of showing us those people that were, trying to help us beforehand that, man, why didn't I just listen, And I think that, excuse me, you're talking about your, compassion and, willingness to have more empathy and, grace for others. what's a instance where, maybe you had one of those young troops, or maybe in the current role that you are now, or what's a time where you felt that you could have triggered elsewhere, but you decided to give that person, probably what they needed most right then, and that's just a hand on their shoulder, to let them know that, hey, it's going to be okay. Yeah, let's get through this.
Yeah, now just being in a more, I guess, professional setting or whatever, I guess people don't really approach you too often with super personal stuff, but, you kind of, as you get older, you kind of learn, that to recognize when people might be having a hard time. You may not know what that is. But, if people, aren't getting shit done, or, messing up, or kind of got an attitude or whatever, you don't always got to jump on it right away. You got to kind of take a step back and just acknowledge that they might be going through something else that you're unaware of. And,
right.
I kind of proceed with a different approach than, one track mind of getting something done or doing it right. So.
Right. Yeah, there's not always just a methodical, do. And I get it. Like, we've got to carry that mindset in certain instances, but at the same time, we've got to be willing to channel it back. Otherwise, we're just shooting ourselves in the foot. And, speaking of shooting, I just want to mention really quick one thing that, Jared and I are going to talk about. We'll get toward it here at the end, but he went on the most awesome camping trip. It's calling it a camping trip doesn't really justify it, but him and Cody went up to Alaska for, I think, almost 2 weeks. Just basically dropped off in the middle of nowhere, Bear Grylls style, and went up a river, some 30 plus miles, right? Anyways, I want to, and apparently you can hunt with a muzzle loader, like in the Patriot and Civil War. Jared made me aware of that. We'll talk a little bit more about that too, but I just wanted to get that quick tease in there, So, we've talked about grit, we've talked about grace, and with those two things, I think that one thing that starts to unfold is we start to also have a newfound appreciation, whether it's the income that we're making, or the growth that we've had, or maybe it's the people in our life, that we are far more equipped to treat how they should probably be treated, right? What would you say you're most grateful for in respect to either what you've earned or just life in general? Can you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, man. Just you kind of said it yourself. Just life in general. You never know what's around the corner or what's going to happen tomorrow, and you gotta appreciate every day. Things that I appreciate now I didn't appreciate 10 years ago, or problems I have now I didn't have 10 years ago.
Right.
I think that constantly changing, and just the biggest thing is just kind of appreciate what you got, because it's what you got. And you can always look to improve upon your situation and whatever, but some things take time, and you got to take it one day at a time and be glad that you're here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that a flaw that we have as humans is we tend to be grateful for something once it's already gone, right? Whether it's a job that we had, or a person that was in our life, that's probably the most severe. But we suddenly have all of this gratitude, right? And it's like, whoa, where was that 2 days ago or 6 months ago when they were right there in front of you? And that perspective it's hard to always channel, right? Because we've got life coming at us 100 miles an hour, and it's easier said than done. How would you say you kind of maintain that collectiveness, that calmness under fire, with just, hey, this is temporary. I've got X, Y, and Z to be grateful for. How would you say you manage that?
Just managing yourself or keeping yourself calm. you gotta admit you're not the best at it all the time. I'm not, but kind of the way I approach that stuff is, still appreciate what you got, and when things get rough, you just kind of prioritize and take a step back and try to look at the big picture and what you got to do to get past it, and then just tackle things, I guess, one at a time is usually how I approach stuff like that.
I mean, you've kind of already brought up a little bit after we talked about your pink hair. You talked about sorry, man, he shouldn't have told me that, but I'm glad that you did. Turkey hunting, and that's from what I understand, one of the most difficult animals to hunt, which seems crazy. But hunting,
I don't know where you're at, man. Sometimes they're climbing on people's cars, but
right.
I don't know. In some spots when it's hunting season, they're pretty tricky. They're pretty smart birds.
So what's that give you? I think that the reason I ask is a lot of people, they talk about the outdoors, or getting removed from technology, how it just gives them this newfound appreciation and gratefulness for the simplicity. And is that something that hunting kind of gives you with being out, and can kind of explain that?
Oh yeah, man. It's just like you said it, just the simplicity of it, and just kind of slows the mind down. I think it's good to almost give your head a break from all the technology once in a while. Hunting is just it's something I've done for a long time, but as far as being in the outdoors, that's why I like hunting. Is it's in the outdoors. I mean, I also enjoy backpacking, fly fishing, anything that gets me up into the mountains. It's might sound kind of funny, but it's almost kind of spiritual for me to get away and kind of disconnect and just kind of reset almost.
Right. Yeah, man. I think that's spot on. And I think in calling it spiritual, that's pretty powerful, because it's accessing a part of our mind that is often so cluttered and interrupted with life, and it's in that moment where
life's busy these days.
Yeah, no doubt, man. So how do you kind of manage to force that in? Like we were briefly talking about, you're going on a hunting trip next week. I mean, that's one thing that I've never really grasped, because I'm not a hunter, but you got to commit to it. Like financially, you got to commit time to it. You got to practice to some extent. How would you say, you make sure that that's a priority for you?
Yeah, I mean, financially, it's not really a burden, I guess. I think that trip me and Cody took, that cost some money, but
sure,
financially here in Idaho, it's gas money to get there, and you're going to eat food anyways. So financially, I wouldn't say it's a big burden. I mean, at this point in my life, it's just getting the time, and time to yourself. Everybody can schedule time off work, but sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, as far as that goes, I almost try to plan, hunting and fishing and stuff kind of in the slow times for me at work. That's part of the reason I've taken up the muzzle loader hunting, is it's just the hunts happen in a different time of year. And it's just way easier for me to get out, and it's also way less people do it. So that's another thing that's almost kind of a requirement for me when I am in the outdoors, and if I want to actually kind of relax and unwind, is I got to get away from people.
Right. Aren't you ever worried that you're going to be looking a big bull elk in the eyes, and you're going to be sitting there loading your muzzle loaded weapon, and that's going to be the end for Jared?
Yeah. You hope the first shot actually goes off and something didn't get powder didn't get wet or anything, and then
right.
Yeah, that second shot. Good luck, because I'm not skilled at the speed reloading on that yet. But
yeah, man, that's just so cool. I mean, until you told me that, I would have never guessed. I thought that the only time those weapons were used is in reenactments, Yeah. But yeah, man. So one thing we haven't really touched on, within the scope of our conversation is you work in construction. You're a civil engineer, and you've kind of had a path. You graduated from Boise State, go Broncos, and that's brought you to various places. You went to the gold rush in North Dakota for a little bit. You went to Montana, and now you've came back down home to Idaho. What's that experience been like? Let's start with North Dakota. That's where my extended family's from. Cody worked out there for 5 years, and it's always, it's got a near and dear place in my heart. Just, it's always something that I'm curious to hear someone else's perspective about.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of how it all panned out. That was my first engineering job out of college. Originally, I had zero intention or interest of going to North Dakota. But, when I graduated, the job market was still, was coming back around here, but still kind of slow, and everybody wanted somebody with experience. And I made the mistake of not doing any internships or anything like that, because I had just a general construction job. I built fence for a lot of years, and it was a good job. The pay was all right, and my boss was super cool about working around my school schedules. So I felt like I kind of had to stay, and I enjoyed it as well. But once I graduated, I kind of realized the mistake that I had made. So originally I was looking to stay pretty much here in Boise, and I don't know how many interviews I did, but my job search radius just kept getting bigger and bigger. And actually, I thought I hit the jackpot and wound up applying to this company that is based out of Bismarck, but they had kind of a temporary job in Jackson Hole. It was like a year and a half, if I remember right. But I was like, oh, that wouldn't be bad. I applied for that and went and did all the interviews and whatever, and then they wound up offering me a permanent job in Bismarck. And I just thought, well, whatever. I didn't have anything really tying me down at the time, and so I boxed everything up in a U-Haul and headed towards North Dakota. And I kind of got a rude awakening on the way there, because it was like late April, and I followed a blizzard going into North Dakota, and actually had to stay over in Billings, Montana overnight, because the interstate was shut down going into North Dakota. And
oh, wow.
I was wearing shorts and flip-flops when I drove into North Dakota, and the freeway was clear by that point. But man, once we got off the freeway, there were just feet of snow. And I don't know why, but for some reason in North Dakota, they don't have very many snowplows that work very often. So, I kind of had an apartment already rented and whatever, and, drove down the road and kind of eyeballed, where my unit was at. And I decided I need to go down the road and turn around. And another fun fact was, there was like 6 inches of snow in Billings when left Billings that morning. And I think I hit a big bump going in there like the night before, and my check engine light popped on, and I thought I was shit. So I think I unplugged my battery just to reset it in the morning. I think I had to borrow a wrench from the janitor at the hotel, because all my shit was packed away in the trailer. And I think if I had opened that door, I would have spent like 3 hours repacking it, because it was pretty full. But yeah, news to me that your kind of idle kind of trains itself when you start your truck back up, if you leave it disconnected for too long. So, I just hooked it up and fired it up. Check engine light was off, so jumped right on the interstate. And I think it programmed itself for not preferred idling RPM. So when I got into Bismarck, my truck kept dying like every time I'd slow down or stop, and there was like 2 feet of snow. So that was interesting. I think getting my truck turned around, I think it died like 4 times, but then I came back up to the apartment and just buried it into a snowbank. And I walked into the leasing office in my shorts and flip-flops with, snow drift.
Who the hell's this guy? Yeah.
Yeah, I look brand new for sure.
Right. Hey, a lot of people talk about the Norwegians in North Dakota. I don't know if anybody's seen that show Fargo, but hey, man, I think you probably fit right in. That's a pretty Norwegian thing to do. And one thing that people don't talk a lot about is the wind chill. And I think that that's pretty common in the Midwest. And one thing that Cody would always send me, because he knew my ass lived in Arizona, so he had absolutely no sympathy for me. But he'd send me pictures out on the job site, and it'd be like, 30 below zero with wind chill. And I'd send him a picture back. Hey, it's about 75 outside here.
Yeah, I thought I left Idaho knowing what cold was, but that first winter I quickly found out that I had no idea.
Yeah, man. So you were on.
I wasn't ever a scarf guy, but man, I remember a couple mornings just to go start my truck. Man, I'd put my Carhartt jacket on and big gloves, and I got to admit, I even put a scarf on several times just to even go outside.
Yeah, and I think too, like, going to the job site and your long johns and your wool socks, that's commonplace out there. That's necessary gear. And yeah, man, so you spent some time out there, and you actually worked on a fairly good sized project there in Alexander. It's actually just outside of Wofford City, where my family's all from, and I've actually got family that's from Alec as well. So in doing that, and you kind of talked with Cody a few times, isn't that kind of ironic? I know that North Dakota drew, a lot of workforce from all over the country because of all of the oil and everything that was going on. But what was that like, having somebody that you knew out there? And I know you guys kind of met up on a few occasions. Did that help? Did it kind of give a little bit of peace of mind?
Yeah, a little bit, man. I mean, it's funny. I know you guys had a family connection to North Dakota too, and I also have a kind of a strange one. On my mom's side of my family, my grandpa was in the Air Force forever, and they all lived in Minot, and
right.
My dad was in the Air Force, and he was stationed in Minot. Both my brothers went to play baseball in North Dakota when they were in college, and then I went up there too. My younger cousin wound up working up there, and kind of odd that pretty much the entire family has been there at some point in their life.
That's wild.
Having Cody there, originally I was in Bismarck, and I actually went back to North Dakota after I had moved to Kalispell, and they sent me back to work on that highway project in Alexander. And I think Cody was living up in the Williston at the time, just north of there. And yeah, I saw him quite a bit. He'd be driving through, heading to different projects himself, and he'd swing in. We'd, bullshit for 10, 20 minutes or whatever. And
right.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I think that's something we kind of grow to appreciate in the service too. It's how quickly you're able to catch up with somebody, no matter how long you've been apart. And it's always just getting that small piece of home. It can do a lot for you. One thing about Minot, they do have a pretty large Air Force base there, and I think Cody may have been on a project or two up there, but I'm in the Air Force Reserves now. I talk mostly about the Marine Corps, but I'm in the Air Force Reserves now, and Cody would always give me shit about the airmen up in Minot, like talking about how they're just, he'd call them dipshits. and I don't know why. I guess he would, see him at,
I think that was one of Cody's favorite words.
Yeah, see him at like a restaurant or something, and he'd be like, man, I don't think those guys, can see past their own stupidity. And I don't know. It was just, it cracked me up because, yeah, it's just one of those things that it was funny because we don't have a lot of military in our family, and Cody, he still found a way to always give me shit about being in the military. It was good though. It was all in good fun, man.
That was one of Cody's finest qualities, was flipping people shit. So.
Oh yeah, he could dish it with the best of them, man. So, you're in North Dakota, kind of, getting that trial by fire first job out of college, and you get taken to Kalispell, which, is one of the prettiest places on God's green earth. If you haven't been there, you got Flathead Lake. It is just incredible. It is like the commercials. Jared.
Yeah.
Didn't
That one actually matches.
right. And so you're up there for a little bit. What what was that like? Being in this area that is just, I mean, you're an avid outdoorsman, you love hunting. Were you able to experience that at all while you're up there?
Yeah, I did. I mostly just fished while I was up there. I kind of took I don't know, 5, 6 year kind of break from hunting for the most part, just because I was moving around so much, and
Right.
I don't know why. I just didn't ever do it in North Dakota, and never went in Montana either. I was mostly into fishing up there in both of those places.
Yeah, life
I did a
happens.
ton of fishing up there, and I absolutely loved that area. It was gorgeous, and
Have you seen
one of
the
those
movie?
places that I hated to leave.
Right. Have you seen the movie A River Runs Through It, I believe? Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah,
It's a book too. They're fly fishing up in Montana and just
yeah. I
reading
think it's, if I remember right, it's a little south, kind of closer to
Bozeman maybe.
Bozeman area.
Right,
Uh,
right. Yeah, I've always wanted to pick up fly fishing. My dad does, and Cody started to pick it up, and I think that it just seems like it's got more interaction and engagement than your regular fishing trip.
yeah.
What's it do for you? Like, what's that draw with fly fishing?
I don't know, man. Just I just get more enjoyment out of it. It's a little more technical, I guess.
Right.
A little more involved, and trying to match the bugs and whatever. And it's just kind of fishing on the next level, I guess, in my opinion.
Right. And it's definitely more of a challenge to it. Like it's almost like an art
Yeah.
form, and that's kind of what I've heard.
Yeah.
So one of the, I guess, epitome places to, get that fishing itch scratched is Alaska, right? So you're kind of planning this trip, and it comes up that, it'd been something you'd been planning for a while, and then you and Cody end up getting together on it. And here you guys, I'm looking at some pictures right now. You get, guys, I'm not kidding. This is, literally like, just dropped out in the middle of the wild. I don't know that there's a lot of people that could survive that. And yeah, tell me about that, man. Just kind of from beginning to end. Like here you are, you're up in Alaska. Where'd you fly into? That was probably the last normal part, was your flight into Alaska. Then it was just like, hey, see you guys.
Somewhat normal, man. It was just kind of, as it got closer, it was, not gonna lie, it was a challenge getting there. I mean, if it could go wrong, it went wrong. Yeah, as far as the flight goes, I think my dad dropped me and Cody off at the airport, and I told you we had a third friend that was going to go with us, and he had to back out like 2 days before, and
Right.
so we had that happen. Then me and Cody decided, oh well, we'll still go. We'll make it work. And then I think I got a call from him like that morning, because he went to cancel his plane ticket, and I tried to save a couple bucks, and I can't remember exactly how it worked out, but I think his mom had like an extra, I don't remember if they call them buddy passes or family pass or whatever, and I kind of jumped on that with him to kind of lower the cost of the flight, and thought I was doing good, saving a little bit of money, but come to find out, when he canceled, that became a big problem for me. Yeah, so I think they did have a seat available still, but I mean, they wanted just some ridiculous amount of money for me to actually get on that plane. Since he had canceled, they wanted me to essentially buy an entire new plane ticket, like literally an hour and a half before the flight. So you can imagine, how much they wanted for that one.
Of course.
But I think he spent an hour on the phone, on my behalf, and finally talked him into, just letting me on the plane for what I had paid. So yeah, even that morning, I didn't know if it was actually going to happen. And
Wow.
once we were on the plane, things got a lot better. And then we got up there, and we flew into Bethel and stayed at this little kind of fishing lodge, I guess, where they kind of rented us some of the gear that we would need because we didn't ship a raft up there and all that. So we just kind of rented some of the gear and just the general camping stuff. We had all our fishing stuff with us, and I think Cody, he brought his little pistol, whatever it was. I actually shipped my shotgun up there with me, so that was a new experience for me, trying to get a shotgun on an airplane.
Right.
But there, believe it or not, there's a legal way you can still do that. So, we paid a shit ton in baggage fees. I can tell you that much, getting stuff up there. I mean, we hauled quite a bit of gear in there with us. But yeah, once we got there, we just kind of had our little area to organize our stuff, and went and just kind of, I think we went and got dinner at like a Chinese place in town or something like that, and it was good. And
it's just you two, right? And there's not a waiver for this. It's like, hey, if you want to go out in the middle of the Alaska wilderness, like, have fun.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they made us sign a waiver.
Okay. See that
the people dropping us off, we're not responsible for our safety.
Okay. See, that makes a little bit of sense because I mean, you guys got dropped off, and what are those planes called? I think of DuckTales, that they land in the water with the
like a float plane.
right.
Had the big pontoons on it, and that flight in was super cool. I mean, we flew over just some awesome country. I think the flight was we went like 100 miles south of Bethel, down on this river, and it had a kind of a lake at the top, and just a little native village at the bottom, and it was 60 miles in between.
Wow.
But yeah, it was kind of it was a super refreshing and good feeling for me. Like I said, I've been wanting to do this for a long time when that plane left, but it was also kind of a bit of reality that it's just me and Cody in a raft, and we got to go that way.
Puts a whole new meaning to getting lost. What is it, Shit Creek? Yeah.
I absolutely loved it though, man. It's by far my favorite outdoors trip, and could possibly be my favorite trip overall ever. It was a blast.
Cody, he ranted and raved about it. I can guarantee you that's his same sentiment as well, man. And to be able to have that experience, it's militaristic almost, right? You're being put out, to survive in an area just off the resources at your disposal and right around you. And what?
Yeah, I remember Cody, kind of talking about just experiences, and that kind of
Right.
at that point in his life, he just wanted to go do shit, and he wanted to do, if he hadn't done it, he wanted to go do it, and he was kind of in that phase, and like the second I mentioned it to him, he was on board, and he never looked back. And I mean, Cody, like you said, he had really just got into fly fishing, and Cody, before that wasn't really a big fisherman, by any means at all.
Right.
In fact, I think me and him, we went fly fishing once, just so I could kind of show him some stuff, and he could kind of make sure all his gear worked, and we both bought like new waders and whatever, and wanted to make sure they didn't have a leak. And so we went once, and I don't actually know that Cody had caught a fish on a fly rod when we landed in Alaska. But he still was all on board to go.
What a place to catch your first fish on a fly rod. That's
If I remember right, I think that first night he caught a pretty nice sockeye salmon, and I think I got a picture of Cody's first fish, and yeah, what a first fish.
right. That's pretty awesome, man. So being up there, I mean, here you get dropped off. You've got all your gear. You've got what was the length that you guys had to float down the river to get back to the village?
It was 60 river miles.
60 river miles. That's nuts. So within that, what was probably the craziest thing you guys experienced?
Man, just the wind and the rain. Like the first 3 days were, they were picture perfect. We were in t-shirts in the raft. We had some music going and had a couple beers with us, and just fishing and floating, and I mean, you can't beat it. And then I think it was on the fourth day, man, the clouds moved in, and it rained, and it didn't stop raining until we got to the bottom. I think it rained for like 6 days straight. And
that's nuts.
Yeah, it just, it sucked, but you kind of have that mentality of, I'm here, I'm going to enjoy it. And shit, we still got out every day and went fishing. And I remember about the third day into that, I think both of our gear was being tested. We both thought we had what we needed, but I mean, just days and days of rain on anything, no matter how waterproof you think it is.
Right.
It's not after that long. So, luckily we had a bunch of fleece stuff with us, and I think Cody did bring like a vinyl or PVC kind of rain jacket. So he had a better one than I did, even though mine, cost a lot more. I was soaking through mine pretty bad, and man, we were just both freezing, and the temperatures had dropped crazy. And I think we had like a 30 to 40 mile, wind coming up the river at us, and we were literally having to row down the river to even move. And I remember at some point in the afternoon, I think I just looked at Cody, and I think he was just shivering, but just sucking it up and still trying to enjoy it. And I'm like, dude, let's pull over and pitch the tent. And he's like, yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, it's almost like you're, playing chicken with each other. Who's going to say something first? That's good, man. Were you guys able to, I guess, like have even anything like a fire? I mean, I don't know, like how was your heat, like with the rain and the wind blowing that way?
Yeah, so I mean, out where we were, up on the upper river, there were, a number of trees, but the rain didn't hit till we were lower on the river, when we were back kind of in the, I guess you call it, tundra area. So
got it.
When the weather really sucked, there wasn't many fires to be had. So we just set the tent up and just go in there soaking wet and try to find some dry clothes in your bag, and just hang out in your sleeping bag for a little minute till you warmed up. And, I don't know. We were cold and wet for just the last 2/3 of the trip, but yeah, we still had a blast.
That's just nuts, man. So I think that and I'm just looking at the pictures. So you guys went in like end of July, August time frame, it looks like.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty neat, man. And I think that one thing that I'm just so extremely grateful for, man, is that Cody was able to experience that. And, he talked about you all the time, Jared, just with whatever we were talking about, and I think that it's just one of those things that when he got back from that trip, he was just so pumped, and started talking about like, hey, we got to do this, Tyler. And And yeah, man, I'm just hindsight, talk about that with being a little bit more in the moment. But I know in that instance, for that period of time that you guys were out there, you had no choice but to be in the moment, right?
Yep.
Just
So I got.
right. Yeah, man. So when you're out there, what did you guys see any big game or crazy animals like that?
So that was the biggest surprise to me. I mean, granted, we weren't really looking for it, especially in the later days when, it was just raining and blowing and whatever. I mean, we saw moose and grizzlies on the flight in. Actually, when we got dropped off on the lake, we like came over a ridge, and there was a sow with a couple cubs up on the ridge, just right above the lake where we dropped in. So, we were pretty worried about it. And I remember the first night, every time we camped, there were just, huge grizzly prints kind of all over the beach and whatever, because obviously, salmon runs going on. So they're coming right up to the water, and, they want to catch the same thing.
Right.
But oddly enough, even though, I don't think we ever got, I think Cody had his pistol strapped to him all the time, and I never got too far from my shotgun, but,
right.
yeah, we didn't, I don't think we saw shit going down the river, but granted, we had some music playing and bullshitting, and
So,
they were probably there, but they probably saw us. We just didn't see them,
of course, right? And with that day to day, you guys were basically catching what you ate, right? I don't imagine you wanted to pack a bunch of food in. Or what was that dynamic?
Yeah, we packed some. We had fish, for the first few nights in a row, but after fish and then more fish and then more fish, you're kind of tired of fish. So, we did luckily bring some other shit.
Right.
But yeah, man, we just had like one small cooler. Put everything we could in it, and we we put a bunch of beer in it. And I remember when we opened the cooler when we got to Bethel, man, like I think half of them had rattled around and exploded at some point inside the cooler, so everything just reeked like IPAs in there.
Oh man.
Yeah, and then we were down beer. So.
The essential gear.
Yeah.
That's too funny, man. Yeah, and I don't know that I told you this, Jared, but this episode that we are recording, it's October 1st. This is going to release on October 18th, and that was actually the day that Cody passed last year. And God, it just even each time I always say it never gets easier, man. And I think that realizing that you guys were on this trip, and I know that you guys spent quite a bit of time together up in Idaho as well. Cody even came down. I don't know that you know this. Maybe I told you on our phone call, but I think he had stayed the night at your house before he flew out to Phoenix to come visit me. He had a work trip, and
Cody was here a lot, man. I think we were. Cody kind of became family almost. He stayed here quite a bit because he was living up in Garden Valley, and he'd get off work late a lot, and he'd just come crash on the couch,
So he had the keys
couple nights a week.
He had the keys to your house, and I guess when he got back to Boise, he realized that he forgot the keys. So I think I mailed you.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, man. It was like he called me like frantically when he got back. He's like, "Hey, Tyler, like, my buddy's keys are at your house. I hope they are. Like, I can't find them." And I was like, "Oh shit, here they are." But it's too funny, man. Yeah, I think my mom would definitely have some stories about that. Cody wasn't always the best at managing where he left his things, but hey, I think we're all like that. But yeah, man, I think that I'm really glad we got to have this conversation, Jared. We talked about quite a few things, and I think one thing that kind of start to wrap this up with is that question that we went over at the beginning. Staying calm under chaos, right? And I think you kind of alluded to it a few times with the chaos of 30 mile an hour wind and rain coming at you while you're up in the Alaska wilderness, or times that you spent in North Dakota being told that you would be in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, but turns out you're in Bismarck, North Dakota, and just these different things. How would you say, what's your answer to that question? Like, how do you stay calm under chaos?
Oh man, again, just kind of prioritize and take things one at a time. I guess an example is just back to Cody. The day your mom called me and told me that he had passed away, I was on the way to. I just met my dad at like a coffee shop. It was kind of earlier in the morning, and I'd kind of told him I'd go help him put a cover on his camper. He had got it all winterized and whatever, but just had to throw a cover on it and just wanted a little bit of help. And so I met him at the coffee shop, and I got the call right when we were walking in the door, and I told my dad I'd meet him in there or whatever, and got the news, and internally I was, I guess, in chaos. But I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I just got some bad news, and I could come in for coffee, but let's go get this done, because I told him I'd help him, and he told me that it wasn't a big deal or whatever. But I guess I guess when I tell people I'm going to help them do something, I want to follow through. And I guess that was a kind of calm under chaos moment, because internally I was going through a lot, but just still went and helped him get that done, and we just got it done. And like I said, you just gotta take stuff one at a time and prioritize things. I mean, you can't change what happened to cause the chaos, so you just gotta keep checking shit off the list and keep moving forward.
Yeah, we don't know when those moments are going to come up, no matter how well we're prepared, no matter how much foresight we had and knowing that it was coming. And for me, staying calm under chaos, and obviously, yeah, like you were saying, that was a very chaotic time, where you just feel like you have absolutely no control. You don't. It's not a feeling, it's reality. And for me, and I think we get some callous on us, we get some mental callous from the military, because there's a lot of instances where we again have absolutely no control over what's happening around us. And for me, what I try, and much like what you were saying, just keep moving forward and really, maintain that mindset that this is only temporary, right? As chaotic as it might be, and in some instances, it's also important to remember through that chaos, like, man, I'm learning something here. Again, being in that moment, allowing yourself to almost embrace the chaos, right? Like, okay, this is going to allow me to learn this, and this, and come out the other side, because it doesn't change what's happening right there in front of you. You can't control it. And yeah, man,
you can't control the chaos or what happens, but I think the biggest thing, for me anyways, is you can't control yourself and what you do and how you handle that chaos.
Right.
So, I mean, in a sense, I guess I'd push back on that a little bit, that you do have some control. I mean, you just don't have control over what happened, but you have control over yourself and how you react.
That is spot on. That's a great point, man. And I think that's what we lose sight of, is like we kind of fold, right? Like we just want to go into the hole and act like it didn't happen. But
it did.
Yeah, 100%, man. Well, shoot, Jared, is there anything else that you wanted to add? You're getting ready to go on this hunting trip next week. You're going to kind of get some of that peace of mind. From what I understand, work's been pretty busy for you lately, and you looking forward to that? Like, what? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, I am. Work's been pretty crazy since about April, so definitely looking forward to some time off and go hang out in the woods and whatever. And yeah, it's gonna be good for me. Kind of have a break mentally. So I'm ready for it.
For sure. Well, again, it was great to have you, Jared. And guys, thank you for tuning in today. I know we covered a lot. We talked about, the various components of life, really honing in on the grit, the grace, the gratitude, and the gospel. We heard a lot of Jared's message there. He really nailed it home at the end there with the staying calm under chaos. We may not be able to control the situation, but we can control our mindset and our actions in that moment. And I'm so grateful that we were able to have him on and, hear about that awesome hunting story in Alaska. Excursion, I think, is the better word for it. And I know that with this coming out on October 18th, again, that's the day that Cody passed. It's the biggest thing for me that I'm trying to control. Man, you hit a chord with me with that, Jared, is I want this show to continue to be a light, because when we go into that darkness, it may feel okay in that moment, but we're not doing any justice to ourselves, and especially those around us, the folks that need us, and the legacy of those before us. And I really want us to embrace that and keep stepping forward, right? And again, thank you, Jared. Thank you guys for listening, and look forward to sharing the next episode with you guys. And, till next time, I'll see you then. Thanks.
You've been listening to My Dead Brothers podcast with Tyler Bolken. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. Tyler talks about the 4 G's: grit, grace, gratitude, and gospel. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show, and we hope that you were inspired, and we hope we've helped you get in the mindset of not holding back in your life. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at Tyler Bolken and visit the website at tylerbolken.com for more information. Till next time, remember Proverbs 27:1. Do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. This is My Dead Brothers Podcast.